It recognizes our belief in God, our country, not just individuals, our country, our founding fathers codified this in the documents that founded this country. Our reliance, our belief in God, and our reliance upon God. Of that, there's just no debate on that. You may like it, may not like it. Declaration of Independence, we find these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It goes on in the Constitution to say we are putting together this Constitution in a preamble to secure the blessings, not only for ourselves, for posterity. And that Constitution followed with a Bill of Rights that enumerated those godly rights given to man, including the very first one, which was a right to believe in God and to express that belief anytime, anywhere, including the public square.
33 million. It's proven to the money investors that people want something to feed their souls, not just their worst desires.
Absolutely.
And
yes, indeed.
This kind of sums up my entire dialogue career on the heat of the night. You ready for this? Okay, this is it. My 7 years on the heat of the night. My dialogue all summarized in this. Get right on it, Chief.
Skinner, but Bubba's my name. I like my iced tea sweet and my women the same. I'm your brown-haired badge here in little old Sparta, but nobody's bigger or tougher or smarter. If you're looking to fight, best not be with me. Gonna be held tight, well now we'll just see. You never know in the heat of the night on TNT. Heat of the night on TNT. Now I don't put on any airs, but then I ain't no slob. Just a redneck boy with a blue-collar job. The ladies I date, they gonna have 'em some fun, 'cause I'm a big hunk of crime fighting son of a gun. So if you're looking to fight, come on up in the ring. You wanna be held tight, just about anything can happen in the heat of the night on TNT. Hubba, 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 heat of the night on TNT. Yeah.
America, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody's grabbing out there. Nobody.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable. Free at last! Free at last!
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now, 559-899-1550.
And welcome to Alan Autry No Retreat, thunderous Thursday here in Fresno. KXEX Radio, the best talk in town. Broadcasting live from our bunker here at Manchester Center. Really a great place. Come on down. A lot of great shops inside the center. Great people. Well, folks, it didn't take long
in the UK for the people just to get tired of Elizabeth Truss. I don't know if you heard, but the new prime minister has resigned. 6 weeks into the job, she has packed it in, says she had enough, and exiting. But, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, she didn't do what is being done many times by people around the world, not just in the United States, but particularly in the United States, with this quiet quitting stuff. She felt it was time for her to go, 6 weeks. And what I'm hearing, I kind of follow this quite a bit. Our son, is good friend, is from England, a lady friend, and wonderful young lady, graduate of Columbia. So we've taken a deeper interest in the UK. But so far, what I'm gathering is the reason for her resignation is she's just not likable. I mean, the conservative policies are what the people of the UK say they wanted from the Brexit. That was a conservative movement that was behind that. The whole thing about, controlling immigration to having secure borders, that was driven by conservative, by and large, ideology, although that concern permeated all the parties. You got to have borders or you don't have a country. But I guess it just got down to not necessarily policy points, but her personality. I don't know. It's kind of odd to me that somebody would quit 6 weeks after taking over or being installed, other than maybe she just didn't want the job. And I admire her for, if that is the case, and said, this is either too much for me, this job, which is no crime to admit that. I mean, I've been in situations where I said, this just isn't for me. I think the real bad thing that can happen is you stay in something that you're really not good at, just because it might benefit you financially or what have you, and assuming that you're not, that you're not good at it as well. And that usually goes hand in hand. When you're not interested in something or you think it's not for you, you're usually not good at it. Now, there's some exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There are some very special exceptions where people just, hate what I'm doing, but they're really good at it. And for the sake of others, their family, the people, they stay in that position. You see a lot of folks staying together in marriages that aren't quite working or whatever. They do it for the kids and that sort of thing, but that's a whole different subject and show there. But I think you get my point. She is gone. Now, who's going to come in over there? I don't know. It should concern, or at least be of interest to all of us, because still the UK remains, along with Israel, probably our two staunchest allies that we have in the world. And I'm not talking like fair weather friends like France, Germany, Italy. I'm talking about through thick and thin, good times, bad times. You can probably, if you're lucky as a country, you can probably count on one hand. Probably not even that. A couple of fingers on that hand of countries, societies, ideologies, but in particular whole countries that were going to stand by you during difficult times. And the UK, throughout history, after that little skirmish we had in 1776 and the subsequent war when they came back and tried to keep the old monarchy going here in the United States. But after that, this undying friendship that Queen Elizabeth talked about, Winston Churchill talked about, and pretty much every person from England, and I can say the whole UK as well, generally speaking, from the politicians to the general population, see that special relationship that they have with us and us with them. So when there's leadership change there, it should be of interest to us. And when there's leadership change here and stuff going on, it should interest the people in England, and it does. And then, as I said, along with Israel, that's the two allies that we want to know what's going on over there. We want to make sure that we are as helpful as we can to keep them as strong as they can be during their difficult times. So Liz Truss out. Who's in? Don't know. Maybe we'll know a little bit more tomorrow. But I think it's a little segue into a subject that I talked about out at the fair about a week and a half ago. And it was about that subject of quiet quitting. Now, in a thumbnail sketch type thing, I'm going to tell you what this quiet quitting is if you haven't heard of it. Most of you have. It was a phenomenon that initially started out as a description of people that were in jobs that were not, quote unquote, that gratifying. Retail jobs, if you will. That was assuming everybody in retail is not satisfied with their jobs, and I think that's a very bold and, in many cases, inaccurate assumption. But it started there. Hey, you know, that person working at McDonald's or working at the Macy's or what have you, what they call quiet quit, meaning they didn't physically or officially rather say I'm done, I'm quitting, I won't be in tomorrow. They just stopped performing, not to the level that they struck. They just sat in a chair and didn't do anything because you could fire them for that. They just did the bare minimum and became very good, these quiet quitters, if you will, which, by the way, weren't just in retail. They were in corporate America. I mean, people making really, really good money. And many of them working at home. So you're working at home where you can, sit in your pajamas, do your job, sip on your wine all day, take as long and as many breaks as you want, yet you just didn't like how you were treated, or certain things on the job just stifled you, kept you from doing the most important things in life, the job, and you just kind of did the bare minimum to get by. That was quiet quitting. And it kept growing and growing. It's still out there today. That's why you see a lot of companies insisting now that their employees come back to work. I can't say I don't understand it, because I do. It's human. Let's put it this way. It's not human nature to pick the path of most resistance. Although in life, we look at the most important things that happened in our lives, the things where we learned the most and became stronger and better, were difficult times, a path of resistance, if you will. My road to the National Football League was full of disappointment and hurt and pain that I thought at the time I wish I didn't have to go through, but I look back on now was essential in being successful. We want to somehow, for some reason, I think, again, it's just human nature to want to not work for what we get or just do the bare minimum. I think it might have started with, the changer on the TV. Used to, you had to get up and click the channel. I mean, back in the day when I was a kid, teenager, there was just 3 channels. Well, there's 4. There was ABC, NBC, CBS, and then Fox came along. And you had to get up to change it. And I was the remote control, as many teenagers were. My dad, hey, Doc, can you turn that down, I think, to 47. So I give it down to 47. 10 minutes later, let's see, I think it's about time for Gunsmoke. Flip it back over there to channel 30. And so you did that. And then, my goodness, the clicker came along, the remote control, and you didn't have to get up. You could just sit there and with a little press, a little flick, that you can change the channels. Oh, my. So we're constantly looking for things, inventions, and situations where we don't have to work, where we don't have to exert any effort, or at least less effort than we're currently doing, as if somehow that's going to improve our quality of life and improve our personality, our emotional health, our physical health. And that is not true. Now, I'm not going to put down my clicker and purposely going, I'm guilty as anybody. But this quiet quitting hit an area of society that I had to say something. It was so difficult because I respect the people involved in this particular service. And it's a city service. I'm not trying to be mysterious. I'll tell you what it is in just a second. I'm trying to preface this properly because, boy, it's full of minefields. I could step on the wrong thing and people think I'm saying something that I'm not. But it has to do with our law enforcement, in particular our local police, who are on the front lines of every big town, medium-sized town, small town, little country hamlets, if you will, through the sheriff's departments. The quiet quitting, it hit that job as well. And it tore me up inside. It made me actually nauseous that quiet quitting would actually happen with our cops. And out there at the fair, I spoke honestly and openly from my heart to the cops. And there's 3 categories of the cops that I spoke to. And first of all, let me tell you, for whatever reason, you put that badge on and you put that gun on your hip and you go out and protect people. And in many cases, people who you don't know, who hate you, would not shed a tear if you never came home from your job. Just some detestable people who hate police. You still go out and do your job. There's law enforcement in my family. I live with that up close and personal. Folks listening there have family members that are in law enforcement or friends. And you live that life, and you know the stress that goes with that, and not only for the individual who is a member of law enforcement, but the family, and in particular kids and wives and husbands. But I had to get it off my chest, and it was, if you had to categorize it, because I love the cops, love them. They do a job I couldn't do. I pretended to be a cop. Oh, that's really hard. Got paid a lot of money. I got paid more per episode than average cop would make in a year, pretending to be a hero on TV. Close as I got to being a cop, close as I would want to get to being a cop. I couldn't do the job. I'm not cut out for that. But out there, and the audio was messed up at the fair when I said what I'm going to say again, because I believe it's that important and I don't want to run from it. A lot of people didn't hear it, and I could have went, oh, okay, at least I got it off my chest, and the sound was muffled. And no, I can't do that, because it was tough on me. It was tough love that I felt I was sharing some of the cops. And it's something I want people to know clearly. That's why I'm going to address it here right now to my beloved cops, and I love y'all. The 3 categories. The first category is those cops who quiet quit on the job. Meaning you just decided that times were so difficult, so unfair, the way you were treated was so horrible, so dangerous, not just from the criminals, but the criminal element among demonstrators who were throwing frozen ice bottles at your head, hitting you over the head with Louisville sluggers, killing you. 34 killed during the so-called peaceful demonstrations during 2020. Particular Portland, Seattle, New York, Los Angeles. It was literally open season on cops with these crazy, bloodthirsty people out to literally not just hurt you, but kill you. Chanting pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. We can call that a Sean Hannity mantra that isn't real, or you can see it for what it is. That was said over and over and over again during demonstrations. Basically, kill cops. Bad, bad time. I've never seen a time in this country where so many were against police, defund the police. almost cheering when a cop went down. And there's some cops that said, too much. I'm not going to answer the call. I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm not going to go above and beyond to protect these people, even those who support me. Because you don't pick and choose when that 911 call comes in. You don't know who's on the other end, whether they support you or hate you. You certainly don't 911. The operator there at the police department doesn't say, as Jerry Dyer says, doesn't say, this is 911, states your party. It says 911 states your emergency. And the police department responds in that manner. Respond to the emergency. That's all they want to know. Well, the situation will be there. But that didn't happen with a lot of cops. And I understand. I truly understand how you could feel that way. You deserve to feel that way. It's extremely unfair that you were treated like that. But quiet quitting is unacceptable. You didn't get into law enforcement because you thought it was fair. You didn't get into law enforcement thinking everybody was going to love you. You got in law enforcement because you felt the calling that somebody had to do it. That there's that thin blue line between order and chaos, and you felt chosen, many people feel by God, to become a police officer. And when situations and circumstances are too much for that inspiration to continue to allow you to muster the strength, the courage, the will to go out, even under those circumstances, and do your job, you need to quit. Really quit. Turn in your badge. Turn in your gun and go do something else. But you can't quite quit on the job. Why? Well, you know why. And I know some of them who did, who've told me. I feel really bad about that. There was a time I had a gut instinct about going down a certain alleyway, and I didn't. Because I don't know what's waiting for me there. I'm going to go in there, have an altercation, and wind up losing my job, losing my family, maybe go into prison. So they didn't do it. I get it. But you answered the call knowing that is one occupation that if you're looking for a pat on the back from society, that's not going to happen all the time. And it's your responsibility to quit, because when you don't answer that call, you could literally a life and death situation. And it could be someone very innocent. It could be one of your own family members, one of my family members. And you refuse to go help them. That is not you. That's not who you are. And you will regret it for the rest of your life if you quiet quit and stop doing your job. They did that a lot in New York. And I've been in New York visiting my family, visiting my son, and man, it's tough. You got to put on some thick skin. But what I saw, at least when I was there, cops still responding. Now you hear about the ones that quiet quit, and they did. Many there that did. But you, not only for the public's protection, but for your own peace of mind and living with this for the rest of your life. You feel you can't do it, as I said, hand in the badge, hand in the gun. Okay, that's the first category. The second category, I want to speak to the cops who stuck it out. That despite all of the craziness, all of the danger that came with 2020, 21, and even 22 now, starting to turn now, people are coming back to sanity. Somehow, some way, for some reason, you kept getting up every morning, having your breakfast, You put on your gear. You kissed your wife or your husband or your kids goodbye. And many of you all, made sure you told your kids. I was just talking to an officer the other day, and he said he always made sure that he told the kids, I'll be home. I'll see you tonight. Don't worry. Dad's coming home. Knowing full well that he may not come home. But he knew what it would do to those kids if he didn't assure them that he was going to come home. And it goes for the female officers, the mothers that go to work every day, trying to take in criminals that are 6'5", 280, and you're sitting there 5'4", 130, wading right into that crazy individual that's putting the populace in danger, and you go right in there with total disregard for your safety. Dad gum, I can't say thank you enough to you. Because there were a lot of them. The majority of y'all stayed and you didn't quit. Somewhere along the line, somebody wove a heart into you, a servant's heart, that would not allow you to walk away from this society, this country, these communities, when we needed you the most. That's very, very, very special. That's almost supernatural in terms of commitment and love of community. And I remember asking former chief here, Fresno, Ed Winchester, excuse me, when I took over as mayor, we were having some difficult times in terms of relations with the police department in certain neighborhoods. Not anything like what's going on now, but it was not the best by any stretch of imagination. And I asked him point blank. I said, Ed, I said, why do you do it? Why do you keep doing it? Why did you get into this stuff? You know, you're not going to get rich, have it. A cop's not going to get rich. I think the average life expectancy is like between 55 and 60 years old. The stress just takes cops out early. They see so many gosh awful things that they got to live with, that y'all have to live with the rest of your lives. Why do you do it? And his answer was something that I found consistent when I talked to officers after that, because I asked a lot of them for years and years and years, all over the country, not just in California, but in Georgia where we did Heathen Night, wherever we went, Washington, D.C., around a lot of police officers and law enforcement in general, but in particular local police officers. His answer, the answer was about 90% of the time that answer, and I'm just paraphrasing a little bit, they said basically the same thing. Ed said, I do it, and cops do it because somebody has to. Simple as that. Somebody has to, and they feel they're one of those that has to step up and put their lives on the line to preserve order in the communities, to protect the innocent, protect the innocent people from the evildoers, even if the innocent people hate them. Somebody's got to do that job. Similar state of mind when we talked to Charles Durning, great actor, since passed away. He was there in D-Day. He was one of the first ones out of that amphibious boat in the battle that Saving Private Ryan was based upon. Charles Durning was there. Spent a lot of time with Charles doing a movie called North Dallas 40. We talked a lot about his wartime service, and so humble, as most of those World War II folks were and are. His answer, I said, how did you do it? And he says, well, and it was basically the same thing. Somebody had to. You had a guy over there that wanted to take the freedoms away from my children and grandchildren. And I said, well, Charles, you didn't have any at that time. You were like 20 years old. He said, yeah, but I wanted to. And I said, you were willing to give your life for kids that you didn't even have at that time and grandchildren? Yeah. And he stared me right in the eyes and he goes, Alan, I wasn't alone. Wow. So to that second category, thank you. thank you for hanging in there, because it's starting to turn. And we're going to go to break in just a second, but I go to the third category. There are people now, young men and women, that have made a decision, despite all of the anti-police rhetoric, the increased dangers of the job. I think already this year we have 30 some odd police officers shot dead in the line of duty, many more injured. In a sense, it's still open season on cops, in particular local police. We just had an ambush the other day in the city. A guy called up with a rifle. Deputy sheriff showed up and he killed 2 officers in cold blood. That's not unusual. Believe me, there's more officers than people die that resist arrest. But even with all that going on, you decided to become a cop. You've decided to do it. You've decided to step up and answer the call of duty in one of the most, it is the most difficult, not the most, one of the most difficult times. It is the most difficult time for a police officer. No doubt about it. You can look at history. There's never been anything in recorded history to rival what's going on now in terms of this ideology on the left that hate police, defund police, celebrate when they die. That's the world you've decided to enter and pledge an oath to give your life, if need be, to protect the people. Many of them, like I said, who hate you. But you still decided to get in law enforcement. Now, recruitment's down. Any chief will tell you, any mayor will tell you, it's down. Oh, surprise, surprise. But people are still joining police force. Dadgum, that's true heroes. That's a hero. You know, people want to put champion and hero together like they're one and the same. They're not. Champions we usually associate with sports, you know. We call LeBron James a hero or Tom Brady's a hero. They're not heroes. They're not. They're champions. They're very good at what they do. But heroes don't get, score 40 points a game in basketball or get 50 rebounds or throw for 50-something touchdowns or hit 62 home runs. They're not heroes. Heroes put on the uniform every day. Our local police department, fire department, law enforcement officials, locally, federally. And they go to work every day to protect us against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Those people are heroes. You that have decided to join the force, go through the police academy. In particular, I want to single out here in Fresno because I was mayor here. I've gotten offended, but I mean it's for all across the country. Thank you to the mothers and the fathers of those young men and women. Thank you, because somewhere along the line, a servant's heart, as I said, was woven into that young man and young woman. And I know it must scare the dickens out of the mamas and the dads. Don't kid yourself. Dads, we're going to be tough, but we're scared to death when our kids decide they're going to do something like this, join the military or join the police department. I want to thank you because you did, more often than not, you parents instill something in that young man and young woman, a servant's heart, and we're going to be, society, the beneficiary of that. So I pray for those that are in law enforcement. My cops, I love you. And even you quiet quitters, I love you, but go ahead and quit. Go do something else. And you that stayed, God bless you and love you. Those that are coming into the force, God bless you, love you, because literally we can't repay you enough. It seems thank you is so insufficient, but pretty much that's all we got right now. And you mayors around the country and governors around the country, you give these officers the resources, the training, everything they need to go out and do their job, which is to protect us against people who have total disregard for the law. And dadgummit, there's a lot of those out there. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. Wow, we spent a lot of time on that, but you know what? Probably not enough. We're going to revisit this issue. Love you all. Love you, cops. Just love you from the bottom of my heart. We'll be right back. This is Alan Autry, No Retreat. All right, folks, we got this new angle. Oh, man, my little fuzzy thing fell off the microphone. This is going to make a lot of sound going on there. Dadgum, these mics are sensitive, aren't they? They're like a student at Princeton. Very sensitive. I want to get some mail on that. Oh, boy. The Ivy League does, by and large, though, Jeremy, produce very sensitive individuals. That's not necessarily bad, you know. Oh, did you see the recruitment in the southern universities, southern states, going through the roof? People are sending their kids to these southern states because they want them to, well, that'd be a good discussion to have on the show. Why is that happening? I got my own ideas. I bet you know what they are, too. Same reason the SEC is the top football conference in the country, and the Pac-12 is just disintegrating. Because I tell you, in the SEC, and you're at Alabama, and you stink it up the first half at halftime, Blue Saban is going to be all up in your stuff. I don't care if you're third string or the star. Where out here at the Pac-12, you stink up the first half, you come inside, there's probably a little cry room in the back for you to go get your thoughts together and get it all out. Or explain.
1 minute?
Or for coach to spend the 15 minutes to explain why he raised his voice to the guy for blowing his assignment out on the field. There's not going to be a Pac-12, though. All those schools are moving. Boom, boom, boom. I triggered some folks today, didn't I? Ivy League. Hey.
30 seconds?
A lot of good things at the Ivy Leagues. It's like Ronald Reagan. It's not, I don't think they're dumb. It's just they know so much about what isn't so. And we pass that on to our kids.
Ten seconds?
You're listening to the Alan Autry Show on the best talk in town. Talk Radio 1550 KXEX. Call Alan now. 559-899-1550.
And welcome back to Alan Autry No Retreat on Thunderous Thursday. Yesterday's show, I said something that's been getting a little bit of a pushback, and but mostly people that I've talked to can understand what I was saying. But I got to say it again. We're just, a couple of weeks and some change away from the midterms. I think the most important midterms in the history of this country in terms of deciding the direction that this country is going, not only economically, but on the world stage and societally. What are going to be our guiding principles, if you will? Who is America? What are we? Is really on the ballot, I think. And I don't think I'm getting too deep or too profound when I say that. I think almost everybody out there that listens to this show agrees with that comment to one degree or another. This is a 50-50 country where 50% of the people, and I just find it astonishing, it doesn't surprise me, it depresses me to know that 50% of the country thinks that what Joe Biden is doing, his policies are great for America, that inflation's no big thing, that being energy independent is not important for our national security and our economy, that having open borders is good, to have a gender neutral society where you don't have a mom, a dad, aunt, uncle, husband, wife, what have you, that they're teaching that math is racist. They're saying that you shouldn't have a valedictorian, a salutatorian. You should have nothing in there that rewards excellence because it separates you from the pack. And in essence, I think it's clear that these are Marxist principles. So you got half the country that believes America should be torn down, built back up as a Marxist state. Now, to me, I don't know why that triggers people that I've just described on the left who adhere to those policies. I mean, it's right there. You've read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. I have too. I hear you every day quoting from that, paraphrasing from that, the Communist Manifesto even. All of these principles you espouse, you adhere, you fight for, you ridicule people who don't subscribe to them. So I'm just, I don't mean any, excuse me, trying to be pejorative and insult you. When I say that, it just is what it is. Then you have the other 50% who believe that God, family, country, individual rights, the pursuit of happiness, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are sacred principles that every individual should have the right to pursue. Are we a perfect country? No. Do we have a constitution that allows in it to right the wrongs like slavery, women's right to vote? Absolutely. No other country on earth has that. Do you know that in Brazil, they had more slaves during the time we had, America had slaves, than they had more slaves than we did. And there was no big deal in Brazil. If you notice, they don't have these discussions. White, black, mixed, it's not there. Why? Because they didn't have a constitution. This was never an issue. They didn't have a constitution that guaranteed everyone is created equal. They didn't codify that down. They didn't have those principles that they pledged their lives to, that every individual, black, white, whatever color you may be, are going to be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Now, in order to get the Constitution done, there had to be deals made, bad deals, but the Founding Fathers knew that, and it was rectified way too late. But it was done. It was fixed. That's not allowed anymore. And you followed up in 65 with the voter rights laws and reforms passed by Republicans, by the way. And that's why you get this woke far left that wants to destroy history. They don't want you, those young people studying right now, speaking to y'all. And I know there's a lot of those listening to the show. We got a big audience from the Ivy League. I know, I heard. Excuse me. Excuse me. But the reason they don't want you to know all of history is you'll find that out. Most of y'all believe that it was the Democrats who helped Lyndon Johnson pass the voting rights law. No, it's exactly the opposite. It was Republicans. Did you know the Republican Party was founded on one issue against racism? Abraham Lincoln. It was Republican. And again, I'm an independent, and I'm just fed up with the parties telling me what to do, when to do it, when to jump, how high to jump. They say crap, I say what color. No, ain't going to happen. I'm done with that. I'm a free-thinking American, and you're going to have to earn my vote. How do you do that? Just tell me who you are. Tell me what you've done. Tell me what you're going to do. Then I'm going to check you out. I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to find out if what you say you did, you actually did. When you say who you are, I'm going to check out who you say you are. And then if I decide, okay, this is the one I'm going with, it's the one I'm coloring a little dot in for, I'm going to really be watching you to make sure you do what you said you were going to do. Okay? Unfortunately, we have a political era, if you will, that Republicans and Democrats do not have any critical thinking. You're either one or the other. You're on one team or the other. You're either Dodger fan or Giant fan. You're a Chicago Bear fan or Packer fan. Pick a team. All right? And that team can do no wrong, regardless of what's done, how egregious a lie is told, how awful a deed that is done. If they're on your team, you back them up. From Hunter Biden to whomever on the right, to these folks, the Oath Keepers, whomever, you back them up, regardless. That's not what America was built on. In fact, it's what George Washington and several of our founding fathers warned us about, of political parties forming where people would just adhere mindlessly to a party and become subservient to a party, making that Democratic donkey and that Republican elephant the same thing as the golden calf in the Bible. You worship it. Okay? That is what we've become in this country, the political system. That's why I had to step away and become an independent. And if people had to put me in a box, I'd say, obviously, the conservative box, the liberal box, and people give their own opinion of what that means, what are the values contained in each. Liberals, big government, handle everything. Conservatives, smaller government. Liberals, hey, not too much on national defense. Republicans believe you have to make sure you're secure defense all the time. Taxation, on the liberals, hey, you got to tax crap out of people because the government knows what's best with their money. People on the right, the conservatives, believe there should be non-burdensome taxation for individuals, families, corporations, so on and so forth. Right to, the Democrats, right to the pro-choice on the right, conservative, pro-life. I don't think there's ever been a pro-life Democrat that I've heard of since John Kennedy. And that's why you don't see that or hear of that name being evoked on the left, the Kennedy name, which was always revered. John Kennedy, Camelot, when things were great, because he was his own person. He wasn't beholding to a party like it is today. And he believed in low taxation. He was, again, like I said, a right to pro-life Democrat. Right now, if he were alive today, he'd be run out of the party or be a Republican. But that's why this climate of, you have to be, parties are not people, they're sheeple. I love that term because it is very descriptive and very accurate on both sides. Here's the litmus test. Mitch McConnell makes his on the right. Trump, those folks, you have a little infighting there going on, obviously. But on the left, you've got, Schumer, Pelosi, AOC. They're making the litmus test. And then that litmus test is applied. And on the left, we're seeing it applied to Joe Biden by the woke left. If you're not against getting rid of fossil fuel, no matter what it costs America, destroy the economy, do not drill, do not frack, go to Saudi Arabia, beg for what you need right now, but by all means, don't become energy independent. And he's bought that. He's bought that ideology. He's a sheeple. Excuse me. Which brings me up to the thing I said yesterday that actually got more attention than my position on the quiet quitting in police departments. And that's when I said there are circumstances in which I would encourage you, and I know my voice is no bigger than anybody else, but I got the show, my show, and I promised you one thing, not that I was going to be a great talk show host. Rush Limbaugh, I'm not. I was never a great actor, but I did the best I could. I tried to be honest in building my characters and live a good, honest life on camera and off camera. That honesty can be tough sometimes because when you display that honesty, excuse me, and you share that honesty, it's you're not going to get a warm, fuzzy little hug back. You might, in fact, get a fist aimed at your face if you say it to the wrong person. And you may injure relationships sometimes permanently. And people may have the wrong impression about you that they draw from a particular honest statement that you share. And yet, I believe it's important to adhere to that saying, be true to thine own self. Extremely important. If you like to sleep at night like me, sleeping's really important. I think I'm honest because it's just self-serving, because I like to sleep. Don't mess with my sleep. If I just have a dishonest life, I'm just going to toss and turn all night. So that's probably the reason I'm trying to be as honest as I can. But yesterday on the show, I said, under certain circumstances of which many people find themselves coming up to these midterms, that under certain circumstances, I would encourage you not to vote. You heard me right. If you haven't educated yourself to the minimal level, so you really know the issues that are happening out there, you know a little bit about inflation, how it's caused, and you can see why it was caused and how destructive it is to society for your children and grandchildren. And if you don't change those policies, you're going to destroy their future, not to mention create hard times in a heartbeat here and now. I mean, think back 2019, how much gas was, food was. Okay, it can happen overnight. Inflation is horrible. I'm just using this as an example because it is the biggest domestic threat right now, not just for us and our quality of life, but literally for our kids and grandkids. If you haven't done enough research to know just the basics on how that works, don't vote. Don't vote. There's good reason to pass. I say that because I voted on things here in California, propositions that I did not know enough about. For some reason, it just sounded good, like the Inflation Reduction Act. Flat out lie. $4 trillion of phony money does not reduce inflation. You got to do a little research to understand that. You have to be a professor of economics at Yale. You have to spend hours and hours and hours. Just go on the internet. Plug it in there. You just put in the little search bar. What causes inflation? Do a little reading. 15 minutes, you'll probably know enough that I would say go ahead and vote. But so many people, they purposely out there, I see it, and I'm just marveled at the lack of interest in wanting to educate oneself on one hand, and then horrified by it at the same time. Bless them, Lord, they know not what they do. This is, if you, and I have voted for things, Prop 98 is one of them, sounded good for education. It steered half the budget of California to education, K through 12 education. Sounds good. I'm all for teachers. Hey, I live in my 12th dream because I got a high school diploma and a college degree. I want that for everybody. But in that proposition that was passed overwhelmingly here in California, there was nothing in that proposition that held schools accountable. You could completely fail, not educate one kid, and you still were going to get half the budget. And still say you needed more money. Now, I would be for that budget, but there had to be things in that proposition. But I bought all the ads that were out there. They spent millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to fool people. And that's just one of them. I've made the mistake of voting for people I didn't know enough about. And let me tell you, yes, it's better to leave that box blank than voting for something you know very little about or enough about. I mean, it's like these people that have these online relationships, Jeremy. They go online and they know somebody for a couple of weeks and they wind up, getting together and getting married. I mean, it's 90-Day Fiance. I'm warning you, don't watch it because you watch it, you'll get hooked. I'm hooked on it, but they wind up knowing somebody for 90 days and they get married, and then they have the episodes Happily Ever After, which is a misnomer by a long shot, because they follow these couples and they're just at each other's throat a year in, because they find out things about their new spouse that they didn't know and didn't even want to ask. They just looked good and sounded good. And so many people are voting for people because they look good, sound good, or they're endorsing the narrative, the preconceived narrative that you have in your head that may be wrong, that you would change if you had a little bit more information about that individual or that proposition. I mean, you go in there and you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't marry somebody you know for 2 weeks. I mean, do a little background. You find out, well, if you're a woman, you see this guy, his last 3 wives died mysteriously. You might want to find out why they died before you marry the dude. And the opposite, same is true for you just don't normally do that. And yet you find out the successful marriages are the ones that have taken the time to know one another. A lot of them know them since childhood. Those have a better chance of working out. Well, Jeremy, I don't know if that made sense to people, but it made sense in my head. Anyway, just, only vote if you feel secure that you have a fundamental understanding and knowledge of who that person is, what they believe, what they're going to do when they take office, and make sure, especially here in California, look at these propositions because they are very misleading by the title. Very misleading. Well, folks, I've ticked off the cops. I've told you not to vote. A little bit different show here on Autry Thunderous Thursday. No, I appreciate you so much, and thank you. And yesterday's show, boy, I tell you, our viewership is going. Keep it up. I appreciate you so much. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, just do your best and let God do the rest. And I promise you, if you do that, things are going to turn out the way they're supposed to. God bless and love you. See you tomorrow on Free for All Friday. Bye-bye now.